Many years ago, you wrote a book called What is Africa's Problem? And your conclusion seemed to be that one of the biggest problems was leaders who overstay their welcome, who stay in power too long. Well, here you sit after a quarter of a century in power. Have you forgotten your own words?
I've not forgotten my words. What I meant was people stay long in power without being elected. And the quarter century you're talking about, I've been in government, I've been elected all the time.
That's true. You have been elected. Some people would dispute whether some of those elections were truly free. But leaving that aside, you, back in 1995, supported a constitution which imposed term limits on the president. And then, years later, you decided you didn't believe in term limits anymore. Why was that?
I think term limits is not really the crux of the matter. What is the crux of the matter is the ability of the people to elect or otherwise. I think we are leaving the core issues and going for the peripheral issues, the forms rather than the substance.
We'll get to the substance, but just one other thought on leaders in Africa who have stayed in power for an awful long time. Just off the top of my head, only you're in the top 5 now, but the list includes Mugabe in Zimbabwe, it includes Obiang in Equatorial Guinea, it includes Biya in Cameroon. I just wonder whether this is company that you are proud to keep.
I keep the company of elected leaders. This is the company I keep, elected through competitive elections from the beginning. So that is the issue. But more important, you should ask the question of what does Africa need? Is it just change of leaders, or is it programs? The way forward in terms of socio-economic transformation. You really pose the issues wrongly. The issue that has crippled Africa has been which way to go, which formula to use. So the problem of Africa is not who, but what.
Well, let's get to the what. Let's try to define what the Museveni strategy for Uganda has really amounted to. And let's start with politics, and let's start with notions of pluralism, democracy, multi-party democracy, and the right to dissent. If we look at what has happened in the last year in your country, and thinking particularly of your security forces' reaction to popular protests last year, in April of last year, it doesn't look as though you really do like dissent.
Not at all. I have no problem with the dissent. And we had no problem with popular manifestations. The only contention was when you engage in a manifestation or a demonstration, you should respect the right of others. Kampala is still a crowded city. The infrastructure is, the roads are still narrow. Our argument with those groups was that if you want to demonstrate, agree with the police where to demonstrate and which routes to follow. That's all.
Well, you say that's all, but these walk-to-work protests ended with your security forces killing 9 people, including a child, including 2 people shot in the back, including 2 people shot inside buildings. That doesn't sound like the workings of a real democracy.
Those who killed people, like the one who killed a child, he has been arrested and he's being tried. Those are indisciplined people who abuse their authority, and he's facing charges, those particular people. There could be some accidental deaths which were not easy to pin down. Would you accept that it might be useful, given the very high temperature we see in Ugandan politics today, and we've talked a bit about the violence that's been on the streets, would it be useful, do you think, for you to indicate that you do not intend to run again in 2016? That is for my party to work on, not for television programs.
But no, it's also for you to declare what your intentions are. Do you want to run again in 2016?
I always work with my party. It is my party which will decide what we should do. Of course, with my input, But I don't come here on television to decide my party programs, my party, to take party decisions on hard talk.
Well, if you do want to, we'd be delighted to hear them. But if you don't want to, let's move on, because
when we decide what to do, I will come back and
well, we look forward to that, Mr. President.
And use your services.
But